to Talking Niagara this morning. And so welcome everybody. Talking Niagara. It is February 24th. Somehow I always think February, being a shortened month, 24th, you kind of go, oh, it's the end of February. And then you realize you've got 4 more days.
Yeah. Well, I might have to step away and get the phone. We'll see.
Okay. All right.
If I do.
If that happens, we face it then, and we'll end it at that point. Okay.
No, it'll be just a few minutes, and I'll be right back.
Okay. All right. Okay. So Trump offers a hospital ship, and Greenland says get lost.
Yeah. Well,
there was some memes out on Facebook this weekend that was saying, and Denmark offers floating mental asylums for the US.
Well, like Denmark's got what I got. That's deranged Trump syndrome, where a deranged president is driving us crazy with a bunch of reactions. And when like the hospital ship that Trump wanted to provide, I don't think he's got one available. I think one's in dry dock, and the other one would take a long time to get there. So there would be no emergency that it could take care of, even if there was one.
And the thing is that these hospital ships are usually support ships for US troops, aren't they? Surely they would need them in the Middle East right now if they were considering attacking Iran.
Yeah, let's hope that attack never takes place.
But you know where I'm coming from in that regard, right?
Just right now they need a sewage ship for the Gerald R. Ford, because the same thing happened with Gerald R. Ford when it was off the coast of Venezuela. Is the same thing that's happening now in Iran. They've got sewage backup. This is the world's largest aircraft carrier, and to save money, they designed the sewage system along the lines of a cruise ship, which made it's extremely under capacity. It has a major sewage problem every day, and the sailors are complaining that the thing is unhealthy, and they got to hold back all the time where they can go. So you would think they would put a lot of money into fixing that, wouldn't you? Because I mean, it's a massive asset.
You'd think you'd put it into a refit, wouldn't you? And but then again, what they've got is they've designed all these rooms in that ship that have specific purposes, and they've got nowhere where to, because in order to get more, more latrines and that, you've got to give up other, rooms that you do other things, right?
I don't know. The sewage system is just too small. Too small and under capacity, which is very odd.
Yeah, it was built for a ship with half the number of crew. Yeah.
Well, whatever it was designed as a cruise ship sewage system, and it really doesn't cut the mustard. It's like I said before, people forget sewage. Like when the when the British had their special underground war room, they spent a lot of money digging it out, and there was a little place off the street that you could go down an elevator. It was very well hidden. It was extensive war rooms, facilities all over the place, but what they forgot to do is put in toilets.
Yeah.
So all these big generals and everything else had to go down there, and they're all very well protected down deep but every time they had to go to the bathroom, they had to come out of there and go someplace on the street and then come back. They probably had someplace set up close by, but
it's a good job they
never forget the essentials.
Yeah, and it's a good job they never actually use that war room, isn't it? You know what I mean?
Well, they did during the Second World War, of course. They had all their war facilities all set up down there.
You're talking about the one at Golders Green rather than the one under the Ministry of Defence.
I'm talking about the one for Second World War.
Oh, the one under the Ministry of Defence. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Because there was a second war room that they built that also had a similar problem. That actually Winston Churchill turned around and said, "We're not going to use this."
Oh, well, in any case, we're getting off the beat track here.
Yeah,
Of course,
yeah.
they're going to, as you said, they would want to keep the hospital ships.
Well, I tell you,
Well,
what,
with the kind of lightning strikes that the U.S. has been making of late, they probably wouldn't need it. They haven't lost a man in their last few operations because they've done it so well. And I imagine the problem here is, anyway, get back to the hospital ship.
But here we
I don't
go.
know what got in. I don't know what got into the deranged Trump. Trump got deranged because nobody needed a hospital ship. It may have been motivated by the fact that the Danish Arctic services were able to rescue I think it was an American, in Greenland that had a problem. So the Danes actually rescued an American service person. It was a small operation, but easily done.
Just a helicopter.
It was a medical emergency.
Yeah.
And somehow after that, Trump got the idea they need a hospital ship up there. So we don't really understand what motivated him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, maybe he needs a hospital ship, but not Denmark. I'm sorry, not Greenland.
Greenland, no. So
yeah. All right. Moving on. So Mike, U.S. Ambassador Mike Huckabee suggests that Israel has a God-given right to the Middle Eastern land that it occupies.
Oh, what an idiot. I don't know if you guys watched that interview. I saw a large part of it with Tucker Carlson and Huckabee. Both of them claim to be very good, solid Christians. But Huckabee is a Christian Zionist. So why are you sending a Christian in American representative in Israel? If you send a Christian Zionist is already convinced that Israel should own a huge hunk of land there, that God had given it to them. These people are Bible people, and they believe what comes out of the Bible. And if the Bible says this, then that's the way it's going to be. And so Huckabee says that, when Tucker Carlson said to him, according to the Bible, God gave the land from the Euphrates River to the Nile to Abraham and his descendants, obviously the Jews, Hebrews back then, I guess you call them. But anyway, and Huckabee says, yeah, I'd be okay with that. Of course, that's the entire Middle East. So that's all of Jordan, most of Syria, all of Lebanon, all of what is now Israel, and a big hunk of Egypt and northern part of South. So that he's really and of course, all the U.S. Middle East allies are going, "What are you talking about? That's really insulting." And he's got to backtrack there. During that interview, he tried to deflect a lot of times on the questions. He brought up Mike Aguilera, the guy who watched the IDF kill a child, and he said that, "Oh, that didn't really happen. We found the child." He brought that point up into a discussion that had nothing to do with it. And a little later on, I saw Mike Aguilera. I think his name's Mike Aguilera, who said that when he was working for the U.S. government there, when they were distributing food, he saw terrible things and he went to report it.
Yeah.
He said he's got no nobody in the legacy, nobody in Fox or CNN or anything has ever approached him to do a story on it, because everybody, of course, is afraid to do that. Nobody can criticize Israel. So but he was brought in to talk about that, because Huckabee had said, "Oh, that didn't happen. We found the kid." That's not the case. Apparently, what had happened, the counter story, I don't know what really happened, but the counter story is that they found a kid that looked like him and paid the family off and said, "You pretend you're this kid, and we can denounce the story." And they got the family out of there, and I don't know, whatever. It's a horrible mess of you said or this said or who's lying the most, and it's deadly. One thing to settle a story is to muddy the waters.
Yeah, and as soon as you get contrived stories, you kind of say to yourself, you know, how much of that is a lot? You question everything around it, don't you?
Well, this guy is a Christian Zionist, so right away he's on the side. He's taking a side.
Yeah,
he's taking a side. And he kept saying, that little strip of land, why shouldn't we give it? Well, of course, nowhere near, like I didn't see the whole interview, but about half of it, I think, nowhere in there did they say, well, the Palestinians are there. Although Tucker Carlson says, well, why don't, he was clever. And I've mentioned this before. Well, why don't we do a DNA test? You say the people there belong to this land. It was given to them by God. So why don't we do a DNA test to see out who is there and who's been there the longest? We'll test the DNA from bones and stuff we found there, and then match it with the people who live. And no, they want to do that because what is the Palestinians that are there? Many of them have been there for a long time. Many of the Palestinians that were Christians and Jews, or were Christians and Muslims today, were Jews prior. They converted either to Christianity or Islam during the period of time. And then also, another thing that Huckabee would not address is the Christian Palestinians that were pushed off the land, because Tucker pressed him on that. He said, what about all the Christians are being pushed off their land? The Christian Palestinians have made up about 25% of the people that are now that lived in Palestine. So Palestinian Christians made up about 25% of the people there, and they got pushed off their land just the same as the Muslim Palestinians. And yet nobody talks about that. And Huckabee dodged that too. He says, "Oh, there's more Christians there than ever before." Instead of answering the question, well, why did the Zionists push the Christians out? And he was very hard to answer the questions on why Christians were being spit on. He would deflect. He said, Tucker says, Christians are treated poorly in Israel. They're spit on and stuff like that. And he says, "Oh, well, how many were today?" Like asking for numbers. And Tucker quickly says, "Well, two people I talked to today were spit on. There were that kind of thing." So they do not want to. The Christian Zionists do not want to address the fact that Christians were treated poorly. They've got this thing in their mind. Remember, Christian Zionists think that Jews going back to the Holy Land indicates the end of the days are coming, and for some reason they think that's a good idea. Because the faithful will now go to heaven, and so I don't know. You've got faith-driven ideologues running government departments. That's no good for democracy. It says Yahweh is the God of the Jews. Whose God is Mike Huckabee talking about? Elian, who paved the piece of blank land to Yahweh, one of, you think Elohim. These are different names for God. El is another name for God. There is in the early Hebrew faith, Yahweh seems to be the most dominant of a bunch of different gods. And eventually, after the Babylon captivity, the one God theory came out. It wasn't just the dominant God, but it became the one universal God. They probably got that from the Zoroastrians, who had the same had a monotheistic religion for a very long time, even before Judaism, where there is that one God. In their case, it was Ahura Mazda, and Ahura Mazda was the one and only main God. There was an evil counterpart to him. That's where we get the devil in Christianity. But there was that's a very interesting story. Very, very interesting story. How that develops. How monotheism began, and Yahweh, Elohim, Lilith was supposed to be a consort of Yahweh, I guess, somewhere along the line. But it's extremely interesting to read up about that.
Right. And this is exactly when Mike's asking the question that I'm asking. So what makes think Mike Huckabee thinks his belief is the true belief? It's one of many beliefs, and it's not the true belief. It's not the only way.
Well, the thing is with Huckabee, he's a Christian Zionist. So what he believes is that now that the Jews, according to biblical lore, now the Jews have come back to what is now Israel, that they're going to convert to Christianity, because that's what it says in the book. The Jews are going to convert to Christianity, and then God's going to come down, and there's going to be 1,000 years of reign of positivity, and all the bad guys are. All the good Christians are going to be brought out of the grave, and all the bad people are going to be, condemned for all time. And
personally, I think that Jerusalem needs to be converted to an international city, manned and controlled by. Well, we don't have international police force other than United Nations right now, but no religion should have control of. No religion, no land should have control of Jerusalem. Should it be independent?
It's going to be very hard, because there's Jerusalem is broken up, and the East Jerusalem particularly. You have the Muslim quarter, the Armenian quarter, I think the Greek Orthodox quarter, whatever, and the Muslim quarter. So this is the old city that got along quite well, actually, and I think even. But Israel wants it, and they want the Christians out of there. They want the Muslims out of there. They want to take over the old city of Jerusalem, and that's why they're making it difficult for people who do live there. Some people, not all, of course. I mean, you get the Smotrich type of guys, the settler movement. They'll want to push the Armenian Christians out, the Greek Christian, all the other Christians out, and Muslims as well. So Huckabee and all the other Christian right look the other way while all this is going on, because they think the predictions of the Bible are coming true. So and Huckabee also kind of said, "Oh well, you can't rely on the numbers that Hamas said about how many people died." Well, we just found out a couple of days ago that the Israeli army came out with similar numbers in their stats. So I don't know. He was just defensive, and he was deflective. He would deflect Carlson's questions. He's been there before. So he knows how to deflect the questions and to obscure the details and muddy the waters. And
I have to say that I've always found this guy weird.
Well, he's a weirdo, and I got nothing against Christian Zionists, except they should mind their own business. They're the ones that want Jews to return to the Holy Land, but for the wrong reason. Really, they want them there so the ends of days can come. Jeez.
Yeah.
And they think, and I'll tell you the truth, a lot of one of the things I laughed at, they were interviewing an Israeli Jew one time, and I don't know if I was reading it or watching it, but he was fed up with all the Christians. The Christian Zionists were there, because he said that he felt like they followed them around, waiting for them to instantly convert to Christianity.
Yeah.
Because that's what it
Right.
says in the Bible. All the Jews will then convert to Christianity, will all suddenly become Christians, and the end of days will come. I don't think the Jews want anything to do with becoming Christians. I think they're quite happy being Jews. You know?
All right. Moving on. U.S. Supreme Court on tariffs and Canada. What's the Canada impact of that?
Not a whole lot. Like the tariff is basically what Trump has done is the stuff that we have going back and forth hasn't been affected that much. Those sectarial tariffs, like on steel and aluminum and that kind of thing, they'll stay in place because they were tariffs put on as a part of the defense thing. As we mentioned yesterday, the U.S. requires itself to have steel making capability, aluminum making capability, and all that other stuff. So it can charge its own citizens a lot more money for those items because to make sure that they can afford to keep aluminum smelters going and steel mills going, etc., so that they are prepared for a war if it comes. They'll have the material, that kind of thing. So that's the logic behind there. But most of the other things haven't changed much. That 15% tariff that's going worldwide, that's only allowed to happen for 150 days before Congress has a look at it. That's Section 122. There's a few other things they're doing too. So what Trump is doing, instead of charging his people the tariff from the IEEPA tariffs, he's charging the American people 15% from these new tariffs. So material that's coming in from outside the country, whether it's a washing machine or a dryer or a toaster, will be 15% more than it was prior to the tariffs happening.
Yeah.
Now, whatever IEEPA tariffs went on, if it was a 20% tariff, it's different. So it's very, very confusing because some countries had a 20% tariff. Now they have a 15% tariff.
Yeah.
Some countries are hoping that the tariff they had will be reduced now because they give a better, going for this new tariff would be a better deal. Now let's make it, why do people want the tariffs to go down? Like if you're Great Britain or France or anything else, that's because it will motivate people to buy your product more. It's not that France is being charged, and they keep saying this. Well, we're going to charge France more, like this much, or we're going to charge UK this much. They're not charging them. They're charging the American people who buy the product.
Yeah. Exactly, and it's not about. You see, how can you charge the source country, right? Oh, you can buy my product. It's $100. Oh, you want to put a tariff on it? I'm not paying you 15 cents or $15. You take it from your own people.
Yeah, you're imposing.
Yeah,
you're imposing it the tariff on your own people.
Yeah.
Now they got bent out of shape the other day because there is this argument that the exporting country will eat part of the tariff, and that the company that imports it will eat part of the tariff. And so let's say the tariff is 20%. By the time the country reduces its cost and the company that imports it eats some of the tariff, the American consumer may only have to pay 10% more for that product.
Yeah.
But what they found out in one of the latest reports was that that's kind of run itself out now, that the American consumer is now paying 90% of the tariff. So the company that's importing it and the country that's exporting it cannot eat that much of the tariff anymore. So the American consumer, so if it's a 20% tariff, basically they're paying 18%.
Yeah, and the thing is, for example, Costco was to some extent talking about this when the tariffs first came out, and they ate some of it initially, but later on they basically said it's not possible anymore. We've run in the first 6 months, they've already cost them billions of dollars, and in fact, so. And the same with the other thing about cars is the car price didn't go up by 15%. It was probably less than that. It went up because of the fact that tariffs only applied to certain items that were being imported.
Cars went up, but yeah, you say a Ford. The Ford proudly says that 80 to 90% of his cars are domestic made, even
Yeah,
even during the time before the tariffs.
Yeah.
So they could proudly say that, and but now whatever aluminum they need for the car, that went up in price because there's a 50% cost of aluminum. And they still need the aluminum, and they're buying it. So that's one of the mistakes Trump has really made, is that he's pushed aluminum prices up before the American industry could cover the capacity. They've only got 1 or 2 smelters in the United States, or 6, or they used to have 36, and now they have 6 or something like that. But whatever the number is, they are heavily reliant on aluminum coming either from Canada or I think it's the other place is Australia or something like that. But in any case, they can't make up that aluminum. The whole idea of putting the tariffs on something is to ignite the industry at home, but they can't make up that shortfall in the United States. It would take them more than 10 years, and it would be a hugely devoted project. In steel, however, they can, because they have a whole lot of idle steel mills. So any shortfall in steel, they can quickly make that up. So, and nickel, things like nickel or potash or other things we've mentioned, where they don't have them, it's senseless for them to put the tariff on it, because that tariffs their own people. Like, why would you want to even, like, for instance, like potash, I think was reduced to 10% tariff. But why would you want to even do that when the American farmer needs a lot of potash? So you put the cost up for the American farmer, and then he or she's going to have to now pass that cost on. When it was needless, like there's no other place to get potash. You have to get it from Saskatchewan.
Yeah. And the other thing is, of course, now Trump is offering tariff refunds as well to some people. And Ford is basically saying, my turn, I want a refund.
Well, Dougie's in a good place right now because he can beak off and not have to worry about the whim tariff.
True.
That Trump did. Like, on a whim, Trump makes the tariffs 10% more because Doug put an ad talking about Reagan not liking tariffs. That annoyed him. So he's going to punish us by putting 10% more tariff on our goods. But what that does is it punishes the American people too. It punishes us because there'll be less of our stuff sold there, but it'll punish the American people because they have to pay 10% more.
Yeah.
Like, the logic there is just not, I don't know. That's why.
Well, Doug Ford.
That's why I have deranged Trump syndrome.
Doug Ford is urging a quick solution because he basically is thinking about the Ontario economy and how the deep ties to the US trade matter to the Ontario economy. And he's right about that. So he needs this resolved quickly. And the thing about it is that the Ontario economy has been damaged by the implementation of these tariffs.
Yeah. So basically, I don't think Doug really thinks that that's really a big win right now. He's gloating. He shouldn't, because we're not much of a different situation than we were before.
Yeah, he's using the opportunity to sound off.
Yeah,
like
I
any
kind
truly powerful politician does.
I appreciate Doug. I do. He's not gonna step back to this guy, and he's talked about him being a deranged Trump, just like I talked about being a deranged Trump. So remember when Trump first got in, Doug loved the guy back in Trump's first term. Doug thought he was the best thing going.
Yeah.
But then when he started laying out tariffs to beat up on us, oh, Doug had a different story. Like he's got to protect Ontario.
Of course.
I used to like you, buddy, but you're bumming us out here.
Yeah.
You're attacking us, so I got to attack back.
Yeah.
Well done, Dougie. Get the orangutan all worked up. We'll see if he invades Ontario.
All right.
Although Trump is so deranged, though, Trump probably says, "I'm going to show Ontario I'm going to send them a hospital ship."
Yeah. Okay. Going to switch this around a little bit. The Conservatives are calling for a probe into asylum seekers' access to healthcare.
Yeah, I did. This goes hand in hand. This is a good one because, Danielle Smith. Well, we didn't cover the story on Danielle Smith we had last week. We should maybe do that tomorrow. But Danielle Smith has made it very clear she's trying to assert the autonomy or the semi-autonomy of Alberta, and I kind of celebrate her in many ways. I think she caved to Trump or tried to appease him. I think that was the wrong thing to do in that case. But she is looking out for her province of Alberta, and one of the things she's saying was we're getting. I don't know if we covered that. We're getting. She's saying we're getting immigrants that we don't need. They can't. They're coming. They're supposed to be temporary workers. They come for the whole family, and we got to put them to school, and we got to cover the medical costs and all that. And you're supposed to be here on a 1-year work visa, and yet they bring the whole family. She's highlighting problems with the federal government and its immigration policy, and we know that those are incredible. It's going to take Carney quite a while to fix the Trudeau era.
But the term here is asylum seekers, Dave.
Oh, in this article, yeah. Well, I was just referring to Smith because it's kind of related, and what I think the hedge now asylum seekers, yeah. Now we got a lot of asylum seekers. How much do we cover? I don't think I read that article fully, or at least forget the essentials what Polyev is doing. But yeah, that is an issue. We find that in the States, of course, it's been a huge issue in Minnesota with the Somalis and all that. And I don't think it's just the Somalis; it's probably just about everybody. But there is this abuse of the social network of healthcare and so on. I think what Polyev is saying here is, why are we putting up the money for the refugees? Is that what it is?
Yeah, essentially that's what it is. Yeah. Why, he's saying the cost is 1.5 billion annually. But again, if people are in our land, legally in our land, surely they have rights to access, to healthcare.
Yeah, because I don't think I read that article. I put it up there, but I don't think I read it. I think I kind of skipped it by accident. I might have to return to it tomorrow.
Well, basically, they're saying Conservative motion calls for a review of the benefits provided to asylum claimants to find savings, and asylum seekers appealing a rejected claim by covered only for emergency life-saving care, right? So basically, he's saying we should only be covering asylum seekers for the most basic of care, and not for all care. Well, I'm very hard pushed to say if we've got people in this country who, whether through the asylum system or not, whether they should be here through the asylum system is a separate argument. The fact of the matter remains that they are here, and once they are here, surely they should have access to our healthcare just like anybody else.
Yeah. So what the Conservatives plan to do is put something before the House that would review the health benefits provided for asylum seekers. Yeah, I'd forgotten to read this one. Yeah, so the proposed, it was when I first saw it, it kind of reminded me of what was going on in Alberta too. This questioning of the refugees and the asylum seekers and all that. The kind of mess that the Trudeau government made of all this. Although I have to say that it was already a mess.
Well,
the conservative, we think we can save the world. That's the problem. When you get idealistic governments in office, they think they're going to save the world, and think that our taxpayers are going to pay for it. So basically, what they're saying, they're bumming out about criminals convicted of a crime in Canada. How come they were not immediately deported? So I think, yeah.
That is a fair
the problem with refugees, and we find this in refugees of all types, going back 100 years or more. Among the refugees, you get a criminal element.
Yeah.
Among the refugees that went to Argentina after the Second World War, it was full of Nazis.
Yeah.
The refugees out of South Vietnam, a lot of them were the criminal networks. The thing they don't talk about with South Korea was that large parts of it were run by criminal gangs, and of course they took a powder when they could when the boat people went out, and then they just joined the boat people and then established. So among most of the people are worthy, but you do have criminals among them. So as soon as you find them, you got to get rid of them. This idea that we give them a very long extended, hearings, this hearing and that hearing and whatever else, for too long, 7 years is gone, and we can't get rid of him because the guy's got a kid and wife and everything else, despite being a criminal. So.
Mm-hmm. Well, the point about that is that if somebody is found guilty of a crime here in Canada, the option does remain to have them serve their sentence, then kick them, and then basically deport them right away.
Yeah, if you can find out, but that's the problem when you get a bunch of claimants coming in. So the Immigration and Refugee Board has about 300,000 pending asylum claims in its inventory. Yeah. Meanwhile, can't you just kind of quickly go through them to see which ones are criminals? I guess that's too hard for them to do. So now you got 300,000 people waiting for a hearing, and that takes forever. So when you finally get around to them and say, okay, you got to leave, are they going to leave on their own? No, they're just going to disappear into the ether somewhere. A lot of these are I think, students. A lot of students came over, and then as soon as they said, okay, well, you got to go now, they said, okay, we're refugees. We're making a refugee claim. Well, they're being refugees from where? India? India is the world's largest democracy. India may have its problems, but we get a lot of people from Kenya too. We get a lot of people from Kenya. What is it there that they're running away from? Isn't Kenya a pretty decent place? Like, why are people running away from it?
Okay, again, like you said with India, Kenya has its problems. Sure. Right. I know. I've been to Kenya many times. Kenya has its problems, but it's still a safe place to live.
Well, why are we getting Kenyan refugees, a bunch of asylum seekers?
Yeah.
I think they're just jumping the queue.
Yeah.
I think they're just jumping the queue, but whatever. I should have taken a more time with this article. But basically, they're getting annoyed at the amount of resources that are going into asylum seekers, and there's a lot of them. And we find that we've heard stories here, like I've heard stories. Well, the asylum seekers that made it to Canada are the ones with money. They came and I guess they made the idea that they're going to get it if they waited to get into Canada through the regular immigration means. They wouldn't have much of a chance, but they had money. So what they did was they came up through the refugee route. But the ones that made it here were the ones that were able to pay off people smugglers along the way.
Yeah.
The people smugglers that didn't make it were the ones that got stuck in Honduras or had to get stuck in Panama or Nicaragua or whatever, or even in Mexico, were the people that didn't have enough money to pay off the smugglers. I don't know. It's we can't save the world. Let's put it that way. We want to save the world, but we can't save the world. So we just have. I don't know how you sort out real asylum seekers from those that are just jumping the queue to get into Canada.
Yeah. And it's a consistent problem. It's not there's no very easy answer to these things. But again, if you're an asylum seeker and you commit a crime in Canada, it's an easy decision, I would think, to kick them out.
You'd think.
Yeah.
You'd think, but there's a process.
Yeah.
If they had El Macho here, El Mencho, whatever the guy was that just killed, if he showed up, he'd get like 2 years review.
Yeah.
I see here that you're an international criminal and seeking asylum. Well, okay, here's your government money. Here's your whatever it is. Go live over there in that hotel in Niagara Falls, and we'll come and get you for 2 years' time to review your documents.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, I'm being facetious here, but that gives you the idea.
I know you are. I know you are. And it's very simple to be facetious in this matter, because it seems like it's like the homelessness issue. How long have we been describing and discussing, how bad our asylum system seems to be right now? We've been discussing it for much of the time we've been on air.
Yes, and it never does seem to. And it's kind of like just an issue that I'm like you kind of almost avoid now. Like as we said before, every politician had a solution to the homeless thing back in 2015 thereabouts, in and around that area, and then all of a sudden, like nobody does now. Individual counselors don't have their individual ideas anymore because it's just too difficult.
Yeah. All right. Moving on. Niagara police could save $850,000 by delaying new hires.
Well, the heat's on the police, of course, because the police are a huge consumer of the budget, the regional budget, and that's kind of being looked at, and Bob Gell zeroed in and managed to get $3 million, which is, I don't know, something. We reduced, and he's also working to get amalgamation of some kind so we can reduce sort of make the whole area more efficient. But the police are still the biggest ones. Now, here's the problem. They want to reduce the budget, of course, because it's huge. But at the same time, just about every mayor is asking the police to cover this or cover that, or can't you do this or can't you do that? Can you get more officers over here? Can you get more officers there? So here you have the problem. You want the police to reduce the budget. You need more men or you need more personnel, but we don't want to pay for that, but we do want more coverage. And so one of the solutions is just to kick the can down the road. Okay, we won't spend it this year. We'll just delay the hires so the bill will come later. It won't come this time. It will come later.
Yeah. Well,
yeah, you can only do that for
that
so long.
saves money today, but it doesn't save money in the long run because you're still got to hire those people. And in fact, the argument when you delay hiring people is always that it costs you more anyway. Because you
In
think
the
about
long
it,
run, yeah,
you
just
think about it. It's like you're doing a job, and let's not get into what that job is. You're doing a job. You decide to leave. Now, the work that you used to do is still required. I've either got to get somebody else to do that job, or I've got to get a contractor or something. And as soon as I get a contractor, I'm probably paying out twice as much per person to do the same job.
you may be. The whole idea, though, it's just a matter of like the bill won't come today; it will come
Yeah.
tomorrow.
Oh, yeah.
You could do that for just so long when you kick the can down the road. It's a matter of just timing. If you hire them now, it'll come down on this year's budget. If you hire them a couple of months down the road, then the bill will not show up today. It will show up tomorrow. That kind of thing. That may
But it's
they
just
may put a
plain
bit of
numbers.
relief on. I may put a little relief, temporary relief. It may just postpone the bill. Sometimes you need to postpone the bill. But the fact of the matter is, we're not drawing any more revenue. What we're trying to do is reduce the amount of revenue burden on the taxpayer.
Yeah.
This is not going to do that for very long. All it's going to do is postpone that burden.
Yeah.
And at the same time, as this article points out, that all the mayors basically are asking for more services than can be provided.
Yeah. Yeah. And in fact, actually, that's another one that Bob Gale could probably get some savings on. If we went down to a 4-city one, we don't pay 12 mayors anymore at 12 mayoral salaries. We pay 4.
Yeah. And King Jim wants to be one of those.
Yeah. Well, I am just throwing that out there, right? I'm not making any political statement. I'm just throwing it out there.
I wonder if we're going to have a No Kings demonstration here in Niagara Falls.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah,
I'm not convinced that delays necessarily do end up saving money.
Well, it does in the immediate. All it does is just you don't have to pay it now, so you get a relief now.
Yeah.
So you don't have to come up with a dough now. You will have to come up with a dough later, though.
Yeah.
I suppose what that does is gives you a little bit more time to find efficiency somewhere else in the system, but I doubt to see if that will happen.
See, again, we're not necessarily talking about actually active duty police officers. We're talking about support staff, things like IT, things like janitorial staff, and that sort of thing.
Well, there's that too. There are in the article it says it's some police officers and some civilian staff. Of course, you have to have them all, and so some of the civilian staff is delayed, and some of the officers are delayed. And what's this say? Bob Gale to go down in 4 municipalities. Yeah, so yeah, that's the opinion there. That's a common opinion that we'll break it down.
It's a common opinion, but again, the shape of the region has changed since those original 4 were put up there, and it would not make sense for one of those municipalities, i.e., the stream along the Niagara River being Niagara on the Lake, Niagara Falls, and Fort Erie. It doesn't make sense anymore when the future shape of the riding boundaries means that Fort Erie is bundled in with Welland and Port Coburn.
I don't know. Doug Ford's got as huge ego as Donald Trump. So if we change the shape of the Niagara region to look like Doug Ford's face, maybe we'll, maybe we'll get.
Ooh. Risque, my man.
How about we call the region Fordland, and then maybe he'll give us a break. So I'm trying to impose. I'm trying to oppose the ego Doug Ford on. It just doesn't work. I was trying to
Well, you
Trumpify
write to Doug.
Ford, but it just doesn't work.
You write to Dougie and ask him. Hey,
Yeah.
Doug, we're going to change the name of the Niagara region to Fordland.
Yeah, that'll work. Yeah, I don't know if it'll work. He does have a huge ego, but I don't think it's that big. But I suppose maybe we'll get a break.
The trouble with having common name like Ford is that it's easy with a name like Donald Trump. Everybody knows who the hell he is and will remember him forever and a day. Whereas Doug Ford, the name Ford, it's like, are we talking about Ford the politician or Ford the car?
Well, we'll have to call it Dougland then.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. All right. So moving, I don't know whether we've got. Okay. U.S. trade deficit is at a record high.
Yeah. Well, this is where the argument was with me and Taz the other day. He says he said that deficit's down to around 2009 levels, and no, that's not the case. Deficit's higher than it has been before. Not a whole lot of difference between 2024 and 2025. In fact, there's a slight improvement in 2025, but it's very minor. It's almost exactly the same. So the deficit keeps growing in the U.S., the trade deficit. So the very idea that the tariffs are there to correct the trade deficit, to onshore more spending, but that didn't happen. The one positive note, though, of course, is that they're down about 30% of their trade with China. So they've reduced the deficit there. So they're still buying more than they're selling to China, but it's being reduced quite a bit. So they're less reliant on the Chinese in trade. So that's a positive note. But that's also because the Chinese have looked for other markets. They see themselves as the same problem we have. We depending on one market, overly dependent on one market. That puts us in the problem, as we've just seen. China has identified that problem some time ago and tried to diversify its market, as we know by the Belt and Road initiatives all over the world. So they knew that they could use the American market for an X amount of time, and they're going to make lots of money off of the U.S. for some time to come. But they know that there's a time limit on that, and so they've been sort of diversifying away from the U.S. And the U.S., of course, has put the pinch on stuff coming in from China. So the whole world is bummed out about China and its trade practices. The big irony here, though, is if the United States and the rest of the West worked against China collectively, if Trump went and he says, look, we've got to work on China. Look, we're the Western democracies here. We're the ones that play free trade correctly. So let's all collectively work against China and make them conform to more fair practices. But he didn't. He attacked everybody, which made them go to China to get more deals.
Yeah.
Because there's a place where you can sell things without a tariff.
Yeah, and we just cut out a new deal here ourselves, over the EV cars and canola oil. And that isn't a generalized treaty on tariffs with China. It was a specific deal.
All it was turning the table back to before Trudeau started to mirror whatever Biden did. When Biden put 100% tariffs on EVs, Trudeau did, et cetera, et cetera. So the thing I didn't like so much about the Liberal government, they kind of mirrored whatever Biden did, they did kind of thing. So they didn't seem to have a mind of their own.
Yeah.
What Carney did is he looked at the trading relationship we already had with China and thought we'll turn the clock back to a better point there, and it's worked out for us in the meantime. Basically, because it is a compromise, but at least we're selling our canola oil, canola seed, and so on, and our pork and our meat and fish products back to China now. And we even got a tiny reward. We can go to China without having to get a visa, basically.
So when are you going to China then, Dave?
I have been in 2007, and I will say that I recommend that trip to anyone. I think our friend Ann Cote, I think she'd been there for quite a long. I was only there for a couple of weeks, but the country's amazing. The country is amazing. When I was there, and I think it was 2007, it was exploding with growth. All the roads were new, all the buildings were new. Cars were new. When I was in Shanghai, there was as many Oldsmobiles and Volkswagens as there was anything else, because local people buy what they produce locally. Now, of course, China's taken over, and they're going to push out Tesla and Oldsmobile and all that. Sadly, that's the kind of thing the Chinese government does, but that's the kind of thing we have to fight them on, is their unfair practices of stealing technology and all that other stuff. We could do that collectively a lot better, but sadly, Trump did not want to align with us. He wants to fight with us. So I don't know. He just didn't get it. I don't think he gets it. Like Doug Ford says, we're mightier together than we are apart. We can fight the change. Like Trump, like Doug said, like, China's the problem, man. Why are you bickering with us? We could fix our problems over a cup of coffee, but China's a big deal. Why don't we go after them? Why don't we work together?
One of the things that was clear is what a lot of US firms did is they rushed to import a load of stuff to get ahead of the tariff regime, to overstock, in fact, of stuff early on.
Yeah,
so
that
probably reduced the trade deficit for 25.
Yeah, you're going to find that it's going to happen now too. So people are going to examine what the tariff tariff rate is now. If it's the new tariffs go in, I think in a matter of days, so they don't have much time, but they would try to buy as much as they could wherever it's lower, and hold off on things wherever it was higher.
Yeah.
Remember, these things only last 150 days. So basically what they're saying, no matter what the 15% tariff is going to be, a lot of countries are going to hold off making a deal for 150 days until they see what Congress does.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because they're going to have to come back to Congress. And we've seen what's happened in Congress. As far as Canada and Mexico, the Congress and the Senate have had symbolic votes against the tariffs that were imposed against Mexico and Canada. That's because these senators and congressmen come from states that rely a lot on dual trade back and forth.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
places like Ohio, New York, Montana, and those sort of things. Well, there's a lot of trade across the borders. Indiana, and all of those places where there's a lot of trade across the borders. Of course, those senators are not going to be supportive of any, of cutting down on that border traffic, because they've had their ears chewed for the last year.
Well, I forget the guy's name. It was Washington State. He was berated by the MAGA for voting against against the tariffs, and he just says, "Look, my state depends on trading with primarily British Columbia."
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, absolutely. So yeah.
We depend on that trade with British Columbia. We've got a great trade deal with them. Like, why would I want to make it tougher on my own residents by by
You
by
think
following
about it.
Trump's orders.
You think about it. British Columbia, Oregon, and Washington State, almost, they kind of do a lot of stuff together.
Of course, there's huge
Yeah.
look like New York State. We got to do a whole lot of stuff with New York State, Ontario. It's right there.
Absolutely.
Michigan. Why do you think we got the Gordie Howe Bridge?
Yeah.
Soon to be called the Donald Trump Bridge, so we can get the thing open. Why do we build that big bridge? Because there's commerce going across that all the time. Good for both people on both sides of the border. The Michigan people are bumming, like the Michigan politicians, both Republicans and Democrats. But point out Republicans here, they're saying, well, no, this doesn't make a whole lot of sense holding up this bridge because that's holding back jobs on this side, on the Michigan side, you know.
All right. I think we've kind of come to the end of this one, Dave.
Yes, and without further ado, I bid you adieu, but I will bring up Gaza, and we can see with Huckabee there in I mean, it's senseless to have a guy like that as a representative because he's already made up his opinion, and half of his opinion comes out of the Bible. Yeah. And we saw by his interview with Tucker Carlson how he tried to deflect and move away from the issues when asked about Christians being pushed out of Palestine during the Nakba and all that. He didn't want to talk about that. He wanted to talk about how many Christians are in Israel today. More than ever, he said. Well, he doesn't. No, he's a rubbish man. So he's going to defend Israel in everywhere. That's his job, to kind of ignore the facts and to deflect. And unfortunately, you can't go with a guy like that. Like, you got to have somebody that has some humanity in him. Like, he just does not think of Palestinians as a real human being, a second class, second tier humans. Yeah, well, we have to be nice to them, so we'll just push them off the land and bomb. 82%, more than 85% of buildings damaged, and he questions the death toll. Seriously? Oh, and I'm sure a lot of them were. And then they killed people more efficiently. Like, the IDF killed people more efficiently than the U.S. did. And when we were in Fallujah, we killed more civilians than the IDF did per fighter. Baloney. Like, these guys will make themselves to believe anything.
Yeah.
You know, if Netanyahu told him that the sea is made out of lead, he will say the sea is made out of lead.
All right, we'd better leave it there, Dave.
Anyway, without further ado, I bid you adieu. Pray for peace, everyone.